And welcome back to Hakuoki. Last time we had a little party, and now more stuff's happening. So, let's carry on.
お、近藤さん、こんなところにいたのか。
おお、トシ、どこに行ってたんだ。探したぞ。次の将軍がだな、家持将軍の後見人だった一橋慶喜公に決まったようだ。
Hijikata's brow furrowed till what she wouldn't have hesitated to describe as a glower.
あの人か。ま、噂通りの人物ならいいんだがな。
お前はどうしてそう素直に受け取れないかね。
She had a vague memory that he was the commander of the shogunate forces during the Battle of Hamaguri Gate, but Kondo gave her a quick explanation of the rest.
あの方は家康公の再来って呼ばれてるほど英明な方らしい。
He glanced over at Hijikata, perhaps looking for corroboration. He found none.
頭の回転も速く、天子様の信頼も厚い。言うことねえじゃねえか。
There was a certain pride in Kondo's voice, almost as if he were talking about a friend or brother. If what he said was true, though, then perhaps the shogun would be able to unite the shogunate and the imperial court and overcome the crisis that was destroying our nation.
頭がいいってのは認めるがね。
まだなんか引っかかるのか。
まあいい。将軍が誰になろうが、俺たちはその将軍の下で戦うだけだ。
そうだな。俺たちが頑張れば、それだけ将軍様も徳川幕府も安泰ってわけだ。
He kept his tone carefully light, perhaps in an attempt to sway Hijikata, but to no avail. Only 20 days after Lord Yoshinobu had been officially inaugurated as the new shogun, the emperor passed away. It was especially hard on the emperor's younger sister, Kazunomiya, who had been married to Lord Iemoche and was intended to be a symbol of imperial unification, but everyone on both sides was shocked by his death. He was succeeded by the imperial prince, a young boy of only 15 years. In the turmoil, the activities of the Choshu domain went uninvestigated. The entire country of Japan found itself thrust into rapid motion. Chapter 3. And trophy. The seasons changed, and spring came. Kyoto was filled with cherry blossoms, and the whole city took on a festive atmosphere. Surrounded by the gentle cheer of spring, her footsteps fell somehow lighter. Okita watched her prance about with a crooked smile.
いいよ、急がなくたって。どこか行くあてがあるわけじゃないしね。散歩だと思ってゆっくり行けばいいよ。
It seemed to her that it was dangerous for a captain of the Shinsengumi to think that when he was out on patrol, but she didn't dare say anything to Okita. Then again, things had been pretty quiet lately. Perhaps he was right. No, she told herself. She had to focus. Now was not the time or the place for high spirits. Nearby, she noticed a few ronin who slunk off into the side streets at the first glimpse of the Shinsengumi. Why run away unless they knew they were guilty of something? She started after them intently, and must have looked as if she was about to give chase, because Okita gave a bark of laughter.
あのね、いちいちそんなのに反応していてもしょうがないから。 もし本当に長州あたりの患者だったらもっと堂々としているはずだよ。僕らの姿を見て慌てて動くような連中は正直言って雑魚かな。
She didn't.
少しは悪さをしているのかもしれないけどね。逃げた理由は大方この羽織が目に入ったからだと思うよ。逆に目立って困ることが多くなってるけどね。
It was true. The Shinsengumi blues brought recognition, but that was a double-edged sword. Sometimes they commanded obedience and respect, but sometimes their response was less pleasant. Their uniform had become a symbol, and there was some argument among the Shinsengumi as to whether or not they should adopt a new one. Some people, such as Ito, just felt that the uniform should be changed because it wasn't fashionable.
そうみたいだね。帰ってこなくても一向に構わなかったんだけど。っていう話だけど、果たしてあの人どこまで行ってきたのかな。
After all, to go that far would be quite a trip to make just to get more recruits. Okida, however, didn't seem to think so.
ふん、君はそう思ってるんだ。違わないけどね。
Okida stopped and gazed off into space for a moment. When he spoke, it was to himself.
近藤さんは優しいからな。伊藤さんなんて早く切っちゃえばいいのに。
He had a tendency to talk of killing too easily and too lightly, but he let his eyes slide to hers and gave her a small sigh.
どうしね。
The scorn in his voice wasn't for her, it was for Ito. Ever since he had first arrived, Okida and the rest of the captains had never seemed to like Ito that much, but she was surprised that he would say something like that where anyone could have heard. She glanced around to make sure no one had been paying attention. There, in the crowd, a face she'd seen before. Kaoru. The face that looked back could easily have been hers. There was no way she could have mistaken that face. But no sooner had she spotted her than she disappeared, melting into the crowd.
ちょっと。
He made a grab for her arm, but she'd already moved out of his reach. She might get in trouble for it, but if she didn't go quickly, she'd lose her. She caught a glimpse of his confused face as she ducked into the crowd.
勝手な行動は慎めっていつも言ってると思うんだけど、まったくこっちの身にもなってほしいな。
She ran through the crowd as fast as she could, bobbing and weaving around citizens going about their business, until at last she caught up to her. She was Kaoru, no mistake.
新選組の人と一緒にいた人ですよね。覚えてますよ。
She looked surprised.
急に声を上げて追ってくるものだからびっくりしたじゃないですか。
She She realized belatedly that she didn't know what she'd planned to do with her answer when she had it, but she knew she had to ask.
さあ、三条大橋は普通に通るところですよ。そこに行って何か問題でも？
She laughed politely.
もしかしてあなたが聞きたいのは夜に行ったことがあるかどうかじゃないかしら。
Could it be? Could Karu really have been the girl who interrupted the Shinsengumi that night?
もしそうなら問題大ありだね。君には死んでもらうことになるけど。
She hadn't realized he caught up with her so quickly.
あら、新選組の沖田さんじゃありませんか。いつぞやはどうもありがとうございました。
She bowed, but Okita didn't even seem to notice.
で、答えはどっち？心当たりはあるの？ないの？
Okita wore the same half smile he always did, but his body was as tight as bowstring, ready to have his blade in hand at a moment's notice.
死んでもらうなんてそんな怖いことを言わないでくださいな。三条大橋なんて昼間は誰でも通るところじゃないですか。それに夜なんてあの警察騒ぎで怖くて近づけやしません。
It was almost as if she'd read her mind.
なのにただ顔が似てるというだけで私を疑うなんてひどいです。そんなこと知りません。
She looked so sad. She felt she had to say something. After all, how could a normal girl do anything to the men at the Shinsengumi? Okita seemed less convinced. His eyes shifted to her.
どうしてそう思うの？女の人だから？それとも自分と似てるから？
She couldn't bring herself to admit that he was exactly right. She'd assumed Karu couldn't possibly have done it, simply because she was a girl.
もう行ってもいいですか？それじゃあ私失礼します。
She turned and ducked away, disappearing back into the crowd. Had she done the right thing, she wondered, in covering for her? She was pondering whether or not she should give chase again when she heard Okita begin to cough. He was bent nearly double and coughing uncontrollably, his entire body shaking with each cough.
来るな！
As she stepped towards him, he threw out a hand and twisted his face upward to glare at her.
大丈夫だから君はそこでじっとしていて。
It was the sheer force of his personality that stopped her, not just his words. After a while, his coughing slowed, then subsided entirely.
何が？
When he turned to look at her this time, his sardonic half smile was back. He looked every part as usual Okita, except that he had grown frighteningly pale.
君のせいでここまで走らされたからね。それで疲れただけだよ。もう大丈夫さ。落ち着いたから。それよりも
His expression was suddenly hard.
彼女 カオルさんのことだけど、生殺事件のことを確かめたかった気持ちはわかる。大事なことだからね。
Good then. They need to know if she was an enemy of the Shinsengumi or not. She needed to know.
でもそれならなおのこと、一人で動くべきじゃない。敵が現れたら君一人で対処できる？無用の心配だったって言い切れる？彼女が君をおびき寄せるつもりだったとしたら、この場所は格好の襲撃場所だよ。
She hadn't tried to attack her, but Oki was right. Next time she might not be so lucky. She could have easily run right into a trap.
一緒にいる以上、行動には注意してもらわないと。自分は役立たずの子供だって自覚しなよ。
Shinsengumi had done so much for her. She just wanted to give something back. Instead, she'd only cause more trouble for them.
やれやれ。お説教はここまで。
Okuda looked tired, and more than a little frustrated. She tried to apologize again, but he cut her off.
妙な遠慮はやめなよ。頼るべきときは頼ればいいんだからさ。まあ、今さら迷惑だなんて思わないからさ。散々かけっぱなしだからね。
He let out a snort of laughter. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, she lay awake thinking about what had happened. She couldn't forget what Okida had said. He was right. Compared to the captains, no. Even compared to the weakest Shinsengumi foot soldier, she was pathetic. There was nothing she could do for them. It wasn't as if she'd tried to imagine herself as some sort of warrior, but to have her lack of worth so bluntly stated was something of a blow. She lay there, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't go on like this. She didn't want to run off on more pointless adventures that did nothing more than cause trouble. That meant she needed to develop better judgment. But no sooner had she closed her eyes. There was a crash from the hallway outside of her room. She rolled up and out of bed just as the door exploded into her room. Standing in the hole was one of the Shinsengumi soldiers. It was dark, inside and out, and she couldn't see his face. He just stood there. She felt a chill run up her spine. He was one of the Furies. She could see now that his face was twisted in madness, and his eyes shone like twin fires in the night. His hair glistened white in the moonlight. He was a member of the Fury Corps, and he was utterly and completely mad. She had to call for help. She couldn't possibly face a deranged superhuman monster on her own. No. She couldn't honk for help. If she did, then the secret of the Furies would get out. That would be bad for Shinsengumi. She had to find another way. The Fury, unfortunately, was not similarly encumbered by doubts. His sword hissed through the air, and she felt the metal of its blade burn into the flesh of her arm. Blood sprang from the cut. She pressed down on it desperately with her free hand, but to no avail. thick red liquid spilled between her fingers, fled down her arm and onto the floor. He began to creep towards her, his movements odd and jerky, like a massive spider. She backed away from him until she felt her back hit the wall. She was going to die. Suddenly, she remembered Okita's words from earlier that day.
妙な遠慮はやめなよ。頼るべきときは頼ればいいんだからさ。
That was it then. Her death wasn't worth their secret. He was down on his hands and knees, licking her spilled blood off the floor. There was no samurai there. There wasn't even a person in him anymore. The blood on the floor had distracted him, but she knew that would only last precious seconds. If help didn't arrive soon. The seconds went by like hours. Please, she begged to any god who might be listening, let someone come. He looked up from the floor. Her sleeve was soaked in blood from the cut in her arm. His eyes locked onto it, and she saw them light up with animal hunger. His grin was a nightmarish thing. There was no doubt. He was going to kill her. She froze.
おい、生きてるか？
Hijikata had appeared in the doorway, his sword already drawn and shining in the moonlight. The Fury spun to attack Hijikata, but the commander's sword was faster. His twisted cry reverberated from the walls of the room, but he stood still, despite the wound Hijikata had given him, sword in hand.
今のうちだ。早くこっちへ来い。
He still stood. As she ran to his side, she heard other footsteps, pounding down the hallway, and in mere moments they resolved into the figures of the other captains.
こりゃひでえ。話が通じる状態じゃねえな。そうさな。ここまで狂われちゃ生かしておけないな。
At some unspoken signal, a chorus of blades slid from their scabbards.
新八さん、佐野さん、抜かるんじゃないぜ。
平助、この野郎、誰に物言ってやがる。羅刹だろうと平大使に遅れを取るようじゃ、組長返上しなきゃなんねえぞ。
They fanned out quickly, surrounding the wounded soldier. There was no escape. The captains all attacked at once, and the Fury died almost instantly. The excitement was over, or so she thought. But it hadn't been only the captains who heard her cry for help.
なんなんですかこれは。そこの大使はどうしたんですか。部屋を血で汚すなんて、なんて下品な。
His voice and his face were filled with shock and horror.
幹部が寄ってたかって大使を殺して説明しなさい。一体何があったんです。
The captains fell silent.
みんな申し訳ありません。私の監督不行き届きです。
His appearance surprised her, and likely everyone else. It seemed like it would have been more prudent for him to remain hidden. Needless to say, the appearance of a man he thought dead did little to improve Ito's disposition.
三男さん？なぜあなたがここに？
Ito's usual composure was almost entirely gone, and he gaped openly at Sinan. She couldn't really blame him. She probably would have done much the same thing if she saw a dead man walking and talking.
その説明は後ほど。とにかくこの場の始末をつけなくては。
Sinan's face looked tight and drained. As the commander of the Fury Corps, he likely felt responsible for what had happened, as the man who had gone mad was supposed to have been under his control.
三男さんのせいじゃねえよ。
薬の副作用ってやつなんだろ。仕方ねえって。
ちょっとどういうこと？薬？一体何の話？三男さん？
この件に関してお答えできません。
Sinan's gaze slid to Ito for a moment, but he said nothing further. After all, what could he possibly say? How could one admit that they had been creating inhuman monsters in secret out of one's own soldiers? Ito's composure regained at last. He leveled a glare at Sinan.
私は三男さんは亡くなったと聞かされておりましたのにね。みんなしてこの糸をたばかっていたと。この糸は仮にも新選組の参謀ですよ。その私に黙って計りごとを。納得のいく説明をしてもらえるんでしょうね。
ああ、いちいちうるせえんだよ、てめえは。ちっとは黙ってやがれ。
なんて口の利き方を。土方君、あなたは。
まあ伊藤さん、トシも悪気があるわけじゃないんだ。状況が状況だ。勘弁してもらえないかな。
なんて野蛮な人たち。この糸、こんな方々と一緒になんていられませんわ。三男さん、あなたの口からちゃんと事情を説明してもらいますからね。聞いてるんですか、三男さん。
Suddenly, she realized he wasn't just being dismissive of Ito. There was something very wrong with him. His face was twisted in pain, and he didn't seem to respond at all, no matter how much she shouted his name.
どうした三男さん。
それ。
His hair had begun to turn white. By the time she realized what was happening, it was too late. Sinan's hand shot out like an angry snake and closed around her wrist. The strength of his grip was unbelievable. His fingers might have been made out of stone for all she could move them. She could almost feel the bones in her arm begin to bend under the strain. His finger pressed against her arm, too hard, wiping off some of the blood from the cut the soldier had given her.
血をください。君の血を私に。
やめろ、三男さん。
くそ、三男さんまで血の匂いに当てられやがったか。
三男さん、そいつを離せよ。
Each man still had his hand on his sword, but she could see the hesitation in their eyes. It was Hijikata who finally spoke.
取り押さえろ。多少手荒になっても構わねえ。
仕方ねえ。
悪く思わないでくれよ、三男さん。
やらせるわけにはいかないんだよ。
They moved into a circle around Sinan, their blades glinting.
君たちまさか三男さんを？勝手なことはこの伊藤が許しませんわ。
伊藤さん、ここは危険だ。あとはトシたちに任せて、俺たちは部屋から出ていいよ。
近藤さん、何を話しなさいよ。
Kondo pulled the struggling Ito away from the room and off down the hall.
ありがてえ。あとはこっちの始末をつけるだけか。だがそれがなかなか。
三男さんの腕は半端じゃないし、まして今は。
そうです、血が欲しい。私の体が血を欲しているのです。
His tongue flickered out to lick her blood from his fingers.
もう許せねえ。行くぜ新発さん、佐野さん。
おう、一度にかかるぜ。
いや待て。
なんだってんだ土方さん。
三男さんの様子がおかしい。
おい三男さん、どうしたんだ。
私は一体。
Madness was gone from Sinan's eyes, and his hair was quickly fading back to its normal color.
雪村君、私は一体何を。
She was relieved to see they hadn't been forced to cut Sinan down, but why had he returned to normal?
こりゃどういうことだ。
俺に聞かれてもわからねえよ。
俺にもわからん。
The captains weren't the only ones confused. Sinan himself seemed to be just as surprised at his sudden transformation. Hopefully next time, we'll understand why this is happening. Till then, bye-bye.